विश्वं विश्वं तत्तद्विश्वमा विश्वं तत्तद्विश्वमा विश्वमा विश्वं विश्वमा बृहदि बृहत्या विश्वं विश्वमा बृहत्
సామాన్యునికే తోడు రైతే రాజైతాడు మహిళలంతా మహాలక్ష్ములైతారే మార్పు కావాలి కాంగ్రెస్ రావాలి చేతి గుర్తునే గెలిపించి తీరాలి.
Hi, I took more than 300 interviews when I worked for Facebook. 80% of people I interviewed for problem solving failed the interview. 90% of people I interviewed for system design failed the interview. If you want to learn why people fail interviews, what to learn, where to learn it from, and why even learn that, come join me in my free class by clicking on the link below.
Artificial intelligence is the engine. The fuel for that is data. Why do you think India has a free WhatsApp or a free Facebook? We are busy chatting. Who's benefiting out of this? You may have acoustic sensors, you may have cameras, you may have thermal cameras, you may have drones. But finally, the man has to be there. We will make a very big mistake if we try to replace a soldier with these technology gadgets. My heart actually reaches out to the Palestinians who are suffering on both ends. If they don't listen to Hamas, they will not survive 1 minute.
Yeah.
Hamas is actually controlling their lives. After Uri, that surgical strikes, and after Pulwama, the Balakot thing, I think the nation felt that yes, this is the way to do it, because if somebody hurts one, I am not going to take it back. Down below, while our people were seeing from the post, they beheaded him live. You could see that. And then they used that head to play football. Our culture is that we follow dharma. What is dharma? जो सही करना है. जो सही नहीं करना है वो अधर्म है. You have inherited a neighborhood which is volatile. You have inherited a neighborhood which is bitter. अपनों से गुस्सा कर सकते हो. दुश्मन से सिर्फ दुश्मनी कर सकते हो.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching another edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Thank you for liking or subscribing to the channel and for sharing with those who you think will benefit from listening into these conversations. While we in India were busy with the Diwali and Dussehra festivities, in the Middle East there was tumult and turmoil. The Israel-Hamas war has threatened to engulf more than just that region, and it will have repercussions on many other countries. We have about 10 million expat Indians in the Middle East. They send back remunerations to India. An expansion of the war could have repercussions for India too, with regard to the economy and security situation. For many of us, the visuals of October 7th attack by Hamas has been disturbing to say the least. So also the relentless bombing that innocent Palestinians have to face in Gaza. From a national security perspective, let us discuss this threadbare with our guest today, Lieutenant General Vinod G. Khandare. After serving in the Indian Army, General Khandare served as military advisor to the National Security Council, is currently principal advisor to the Ministry of Defence, and has served as Director General, Defence Intelligence Agency. I'm joined in this conversation with my colleague Ajit Dubey. Thank you, General Khandare. Thank you so much for being part of the podcast. We will talk a whole lot about your career in the army and about data protection, and of course we'll bring in this book on data sovereignty. So I request viewers and listeners do pick up this book. It's called Data Sovereignty: The Pursuit of Supremacy, and it's authored by several people, including General Khandare. So we'll talk about this and about data protection. But first, I want to focus on what everybody is wondering at this stage, whether they are civilians or whether they are part of the Fauj. Is that what happened in West Asia? How was Israel caught unawares? We've all grown up listening to stories about the Mossad and about the hard state that Israel is. As a military man, as an advisor to the Indian government also on military matters, what do you think happened? How were the defense forces caught unawares in Israel?
Firstly, thank you, Smita, for inviting me here. And Your point is absolutely relevant. No military should ever be caught off guard. And especially when you are in a festive mood. And that happened so many years back, and it happened again. So I would say, personally, I'm telling you that the present chief of Israeli Defense Force, I know him well. I'm surprised. And I'm surprised because he was my contemporary when I was the intelligence chief. I have interacted with him. I know how professional he is. In fact, in our earlier days, we have interacted of what is the preparation of Hamas, Hezbollah. He knew everything. So I'm actually surprised how did it happen. And the other part, the last two chiefs, that is the present one and the last chief, both have been Southern Army commanders in Israel. And that's where everything went wrong. Maybe at times what happens with us, when you know a little too much, you get into that complacency mood. Possibly, I feel that may have happened. I am not the final judge. That's for the Israeli Defense Force to check out. One possibility more is when countries and armed forces get into too much of technology. I have seen there how they have cameras, they have drones, they have autonomous firing systems. They have control centers right down to a battalion and a company level. Maybe they thought that they were seeing everything. Somewhere a tilt more towards technology, less towards human. What is required is a beautiful synergy between human and techint. Maybe that's where something went wrong. Otherwise, how can Israeli Defense Force be so complacent, and look at the price that they have paid, and especially of the civilians who had no role to play in this.
Yeah.
That barbaric act obviously cannot be forgiven.
Right. So I heard one expert on American television who said an Israeli, somebody who's seen the region, whose opinion was that, when they opened up the borders to bring in Palestinians, so there were Palestinians who were working as gardeners, as electricians, as household staff in the homes of several IDF personnel. They were working in the homes of intelligence personnel. Maybe they were vetted, but they were doing that. And then they were coming in every day. And somewhere there was a nexus, as you said, that human intelligence was probably not all that great, even though technically they might have passed all the checks and things like that. But somewhere they were gathering all that information. They knew exactly when the gates of the kibbutz would be shut, opened, and the people who were in charge of the security, the armed personnel who were in charge of the security of the kibbutz, they went on air to say they knew exactly the Hamas warriors who came in. I'm not even going to say non-state actors. They were warriors the way they came in. They knew the time of change of guard. They knew where the weapons were stored. They knew the security drill in the kibbutz, that if and when an attack happens, with how much time it would take to go to the safe room, where the safe rooms were located. They had all that intelligence. So while you're saying that perfect harmony between human and techint would be something that everybody aspires for, here there were large gaping holes in that.
Actually, this is where you can see Hamas had more human, and I think they mastered that. And over a period of time, possibly again, one more factor may have happened. When you look at the Israeli Defense Force deployment, they have generally given more priority to the northern sector.
Hezbollah. Okay.
And they have given a lot of priority to Tel Aviv. They have given a lot of priority to such bigger installations which they have. Even their military deployment in the south is very less.
West Bank has more.
Yeah.
Okay.
And even the Negev desert, they have been planning for so long that they will thin out from Tel Aviv and get into Negev desert. It takes time, and maybe that was one more thing which the planners from Hamas and the external support that they were getting, they may have seen which is the thinnest deployment, which is the place where they can look at. maybe that could be another reason. We are just speculating at the moment, but your point is absolutely valid. When you allow such a pouring in of labor, and again, that's a lesson for us also. What is, when you say credentials have been checked, what do you mean by that? Even in India, when you look at it, the police station is supposed to confirm. Maybe in Israel also that is supposed to confirm. How effective would a police station be to know everything? Yes, when I speak to the IPS officers, they say the nerve center of every intelligence is the police station. So they are busy collecting intelligence, but when you have such an enemy across the border or inside, then I think more provisions have to be made, and you cannot be lackadaisical to a level that you feel that they are scared now and they will not take any action. Maybe your assessments have gone wrong. Maybe your analysis was wrong. So they have to again get to the basics. And in our case also, whenever things go wrong, we say get back to basics.
Which is what?
You have to start from intelligence. What exactly is the problem and how do you need to tackle it? It's not that you've gone ahead and you've reached a technological threshold where you say that you will start neglecting the basics. I think they have to get back to basics, and that is what will solve the problem subsequently.
And sir, you talked about this synergy between human and tech and going back to basics. Now, in last many years in the past, we have also now, even in India, we have been hearing that now with the influx of more and more technology, deployment of cameras and sensors on the LOC and LAC, there is a possibility that we can cut down the numbers in the army. We have been hearing about leaner, meaner army, technology-driven army. So, is that a lesson in this entire episode? Is this a lesson for us as well that, okay, you can, technology can help you keep a better eye on the enemy, but it cannot replace the soldier on ground?
Ajit, you are absolutely right. And especially in India, our terrain is different. In Israel, when you look at it, flattish terrain all over, and a camera can cover right up to a kilometer. In our case, there are folds in the ground. There are, even if you put camera in certain places, I will tell you, the streams that are rushing past, you can't even pick up a sound which is loud enough. Then the winds, the howling winds, so you may have acoustic sensors, you may have cameras, you may have thermal cameras, you may have drones, but finally the man has to be there, and the man has to be in charge of all this. You can't be depending on remote control and say that, okay, I will put everything which is based on technology and remove the person from there. Finally, whether it is, anything can go wrong. A camera can be blacked out. And when we look at our enemy on the northern borders, he has got technology to even blow up the electronic circuits. So I think we will make a very big mistake if we try to replace a soldier with these technology gadgets. Let's put it this way. The man is effective, but let's make him more effective by not replacing him, but giving him all these technological gadgets.
And like you were saying that our borders, because of the geographical, the topography, I've seen myself, when you see the desert region, when we have the Thar desert region, you fencing to hai, but because of the sand dunes, you have the fence, and sometimes it's a hanging fence because the sand dune has shifted, and you can easily go under the fence.
Sometimes you can even climb the sand dune and you are on the other side of the fence.
Yeah, because the fence has gone down.
The same thing happens in Kashmir. The fence which we have put there, the amount of snowfall, there are occasions, and every year the fence is buried. And if the snow, and what happens is throughout the night, because of the wind factor, the snow actually becomes a thick crust. It can take the human weight. So when people say the passes have closed, doesn't mean that we are relaxing. Because we know that over the fence, there is at least 4 to 5 feet of snow, and people walk across, and that is much more difficult for us because it is freezing cold, and this crust enables people to walk across. You've seen in the last few years these terrorists who've been gunned down or who've been captured. Look at the clothing that they're wearing. It's absolutely special clothing that they are wearing and coming across. So earlier, during my younger days, people used to say, okay, during the winter, 16 corps will have a bulk of infiltration and 15 will have nothing. Nothing like that. You will find similar trends on both sides of Shamshabadi.
When we talk about clothing and all, of course, we are going to think about Siachen and what happened then. You've done a posting there too. Tell us about the conditions there. And, you know, I'm all the more keen to listen to your stories, your anecdotes, and what you have to say about that region because of, you know, those visuals of those paragliders who came in.
Yeah.
The Hamas paragliders who came in, and now you're telling us about the about Siachen, and it just brings back that nobody at that time thought that infiltration will happen in that region, you know, and they came in. They came in
the Kargil region.
In the Kargil region, they came in Siachen. They came in and stuff that we thought won't happen. They had all the clothing to beat.
Yeah.
So you tell me about that.
See, I was posted on Siachen Glacier in 1988. And in 84, we had just established the post. And we were all struggling to consolidate. You know, first, and when I'm saying consolidate, do remember that 84, when now Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni landed there first, and we started deploying our troops. It was extremely difficult because you can't have anything going up there except you're lugging it or you're para-dropping it. Half the time, whatever stores were being para-dropped were falling into crevices. You could not even recover that, even rations. So it was a logistical nightmare, and the number of casualties because of the cold climate were more than the what we suffered.
I'm going to
of the
interrupt you. For listeners and viewers, we have done a podcast with General Kulkarni. I urge you to listen to that and listen to the whole Siachen story which General Kulkarni gave us at that time. Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
So when we went there in 88, by then, Pakis had already attacked once, and then Bana Singh had taken back Kaid post, so that had happened once. Then subsequently one more event happened where 3-4 GR was there, and then Major KG Chatterjee had fought valiantly, and he got a Mahavir Chakra for that. So just at the footsteps of that we landed there. And we were the ones who relieved 3-4 GR there. 14 Garhwal was my battalion. And we again faced the same thing. And I think in the summer of 1988, we again got attacked at Bana. We again got attacked at Bila Fondla complex. So it was a cat and mouse game. The moment they sensed some weakness somewhere, or especially at a time when the battalions were changing, they always tried their stunts. And during that period, we had to establish one more very high post. We called it Pratap. And it was an interesting thing. My unit had a very brave officer who recently passed away because of some ailment after retirement. Then Major A.P. Singh. He took a patrol and occupied a very high peak. And when he climbed up and the weather cleared up, he saw just about 50 meters below, the Pakis were also climbing up.
They were trying to come up on that.
On that same feature.
Okay.
So maybe we reached a little earlier. So how do I attribute it? Quick decision making and quick execution. So we were able to get there before them. And then we obviously brought down fire on them, and then they went running back. And those were the SSG soldiers. And during this time, we have to see what was the role played by then Brigadier Parvez Musharraf. He was the one who was pushing for this. And please connect this now. These dots have to be connected. I think he always felt slighted that he could not take Siachen back.
So Kargil.
You know, human psyche is extremely important. You can't put everything on paper, but people like me keep thinking that he was commanding 323 Brigade, he could not get it. During our tenure there, his failed attack on Bila, there were bodies which were lying all over and they were buried under snow. And we retrieved those bodies and handed them over back to Pakis, not from where we were, but we took the bodies back with full respect. And then they were flown to Kargil, and from Kargil they were handed over back to the Pakis. not a word of gratitude. And we know how difficult it was to dig out these bodies. See, it is ice. You can see the body, but when you have to take out the body, you have to be extra careful because the body is now, in a way, so fragile.
Rigor mortis.
Yeah, so fragile that it can break. And we don't want to show disrespect towards any person. So when we were doing that, we were absolutely eyeball to eyeball with the Paki soldiers on Siachen Glacier. And we took out these bodies then in the helicopter. And you can understand, the helicopter effort in those days was not as much. We could not even afford to have, but we gave priority to their bodies going back.
So this means, sir, this is a tradition in the Pakistani army to just shun the dead and move ahead with other things.
Yes.
We have been showing respect. In 99,
Yes.
we showed respect. We gave them, and they had just forgotten that these bodies were even lying there.
See, basically our culture, we are a civilizational country. Our culture is that we follow dharma. What is dharma? जो सही करना है. जो सही नहीं करना है वो अधर्म है. So we have all been brought up right from our childhood days to teach us, do what is right. It's not who's observing you, but do what is right. And that's what, when we were getting these bodies out, you didn't have to tell our soldiers that, be careful. Don't, it's not a store that you just throw it, So that kind of leadership, that kind of following that we have, that makes our army quite good. It's quite a civilized army. You've heard of the raids across the line of control where heads are cut. Have you ever heard of Indian army cutting heads? No, we've never done that. We may take our revenge, but we won't be doing what butchery they do to our soldiers.
But we've heard about some journalists have seen the videos of the butchery that was done in West Asia. I keep coming back to that, sir, because
right.
it's something that has shaken a lot of people. What the Hamas did, and now what is happening in Gaza, the brutality of what is happening in Gaza is also shocking everybody. That this whole thing about revenge has to be taken. Tell us, as a military man, how do you feel that civilians have been killed? What is the Israeli mentality? Because you know the Israel intelligence chief, you know the people who are heading the defense forces. You've interacted with them. How do you say this? Because the Israelis say it's an existential crisis for them. They have to take revenge, and there is no question of ceasefire, and there is no question of any quarter asked. They are going to get their people out, those who have been taken hostage, and they will be leveled out. You tell me, where does the humanitarian aspect come out here? Because now all over the world, people are saying that this is a crisis now. You are talking about a country's defense forces wanting revenge against civilians, because the Hamas are civilians in a way. They are a terror group, yes, but Palestinians are civilians.
See, 2 or 3 things here, Smita. Firstly, the barbarity that Hamas displayed is absolutely shocking. In fact, why am I saying shocking? Because they are known to be that. That's what Ajit also asked, that this is exactly how they behave. So, while it's not a good thing to say that one expects it, but one should be ready to counter them or to prevent such a thing happening. Now that it has happened, it has shaken up the entire Israel nation. And when Israel nation has been shaken up, one is by the barbarity and second because of the hostages. And how does the Israeli Defense Force react to this? Israel Defense Force has a very strong claim to say that below the Gaza Strip, there's a network of tunnels. And if there is a network of tunnels, that's where more rockets have been stored. You look at the record that Israelis have been claiming, and for a number of years. At times they say there are 130,000 rockets. At times that figure has reached 160,000.
Yeah.
And how many were fired? If you calculate how many were fired, people say 40,000 were fired, 20,000, 50,000. There's a whole lot which is still lying inside somewhere. And Israelis do not want their population to be targeted again with whatever is lying balance. And when I'm saying balance, don't forget that more is being manufactured and sent here. So when you said existential threats, this is exactly what an Israeli thinks of. He says, if I don't protect myself, my future generation is not going to forgive me. Their past generations have suffered. They don't want that cycle to be repeated. They are looking for those rockets which are in the tunnels. They are looking for these Hamas terrorists who are in the tunnels. How do you get to the tunnels? You know, it's the most difficult thing for an infantryman to get into the tunnels and fight, which are all prepared fortified in a manner. So how do you do it? The only way to do it is to bomb them. And bomb them in which manner? Now, the terrorists are known to be using human shields. That's what they've done?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are the hostages now? Possibly in these tunnels. So they also are looking at these tunnels still being saved in a manner because the Israeli hostages are there. Do you see a plot in that? That the hostages have been taken? For what? Every time you take a hostage, you extract a price out of it. Were they looking for people to be released? No. They were looking for ensuring that Israelis do not react as violently as they would. Remember what happened in Kandahar when our relatives came around the Prime Minister's house and said, look, I remember how bad it was, where they said, look, this is a new year coming and year 2000, 99 to 2000 transition. Is this the way we are going to remember? Our children are there. You don't have children. Do whatever you feel like. So you hold the government hostage. Israel is different. In Israel, everyone has done soldiering because of the conscription method. They know that if they have been taken as hostage and even if they have to sacrifice, so be it. That is for the entire race, for the religion and for the country. I have a feeling that these hostages were taken by Hamas in a way to ensure that retaliation does not happen in this manner, and that threshold Israel has already crossed in decision making. And they are trying to get the tunnel, they are trying to blow up whatever is stored underneath. Most of the offices, headquarters, bunkers were below the buildings. Would you spare the buildings and then have the same people again come back at you? You have to be careful as a military man. I think the political decision and the military decision are in convergence. The political decision is that such a thing will never be allowed to happen. Hamas or Hezbollah should not exist. If there are these two fronts, at least one has to be finished. And then the military plan has been translated into that manner. We will not suffer more casualties by putting them into the tunnels without making adequate damage to the tunnels. I think that is the way the military plan has been planned and executed.
Sir, you talked about this strong resolve of the Israeli government and their defense forces that we will not discuss hostage, and I guess what you are suggesting is that this was also a miscalculation on part of Hamas that we will take hostages and is there a lesson for us also to learn that if a situation like this ever comes in future, what should be the national priority?
Do we do drills for this?
Now, this comes under the civil defense. Now, civil defense is controlled by the MHA. I know for sure that in the past few months, there has been some activity in the civil defense. I know there's a retired Air Force officer who's working in civil defense and he's been interacting with the Ministry of Defense also. He's been interacting with think tanks also, and he's doing a lot to get things going.
No, what exactly is he doing, sir?
See, what had happened, I will tell you. In 1965, I was a small child here in Delhi, and when these air raids and sirens used to happen, the civil defense and NCC used to play a major role in trying to get the blackout ensured, getting people into the trenches. In front of our house, we had a trench. So whenever there was an air raid siren, we used to get into the...
In Delhi?
Yes. In Delhi,
1965, there were trenches here?
Yes, in trenches. And
we expected attacks to happen in Delhi?
Yes, we did expect around that time because
Pakistanis... They come by Ambala.
They came Ambala, Jodhpur. And actually what was happening in 1965, there was tremendous amount of inventory deficiency in our case. They were flying Sabre jets. We were flying Nats. And Nats were the British aircrafts which we had inherited. We didn't have that kind of a capability. So at that time, Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri was an excellent Prime Minister, and he was very sure that he couldn't accept any more damages from what already had happened, what had happened in Kutch and other places. So we were going on even in Agra, there used to be blackouts. So we were getting ready to ensure that we don't suffer losses and we get back whatever we had to.
I remember the 1971 blackouts and the sirens, and everybody had to go in. I remember my father had that Vespa scooter जिस पे वो black वो होता था, and we had those
हाँ.
brown paper covers on
That half light, and
light.
then that
Yeah.
time you did full with a small
Yeah,
hole
a
in
circle
between. Yeah.
in the center, and then brown paper covers on the bulbs on thing.
Yes,
And when
absolutely.
at the time of the siren, we had to go and stand in the corners of the house. If you could go out, fine. If not, stand in the corners of your house, because at night going out is also difficult. And I clearly remember the confusion, because we used to live in South Delhi, and General Yahya Khan had said, "हमने Nauroji Nagar bomb किया है." That was like barely a kilometer away from where we were. This was, of course, fake. There was no
Yeah,
bombing.
yeah.
But he had just heard of a place that's my vague recollection of what blackouts were. But I don't remember trenches in Delhi.
65,
65
I have
there was.
myself gone into a trench,
Into a
and
trench.
I know the shape was Z.
Okay.
So you had to just get into it so that it's not linear in a manner. If it is a linear and the bomb falls, then everyone goes into that.
So this is the work of the civil defense.
Civil
to come back
defense.
to what
This-
you
this
were
is
saying.
civil defense.
Okay.
No, what I was asking, sir, this is about how to manage people in crisis. I'm saying in terms of negotiation for hostage and the prioritization of the situation. Like if there is a hostage situation and somebody is trying to blackmail you, somebody has attacked us, and then so I was asking about that
Okay,
situation.
see how it happens. Hostage crisis we've had, then we've had quite adverse impact during the Uri crisis. So at that time, immediately we have an apex level mechanism which comes in, and I'm not describing more of it, but that comes in, and I've been a part of that. So I know whatever time of the day or night, people immediately get together, and then a decision or a recommendation is taken to the CCS. And the CCS immediately takes it. It's not as bureaucratic as it may appear, because the people who are there in that apex level, they are all people who can take action and decisions. And then immediately it is taken to the top hierarchy. That's where the Prime Minister and his four
CCS
other
ministers.
ministers, they decide on how to proceed with it and what are the implications of it. How can we handle it as far as that management is concerned and termination is concerned. So the initiation has been done by the enemy. Now the management has to be done by us, and then the termination. So that at the apex level, we have a good system, quite agile, and things happen. Now, how is the nation prepared? The national resilience is extremely important. National resilience in Israel is remarkable. Whatever losses happen to individual, they are ready to accept it. Have you seen the kind of upheaval that would have happened in India, or it would have happened in any other part? As compared to that, Israel has had some protests. Some protests also, that is another lesson. Whenever you have a weak government at the center, such things happen. So a nation's resilience is also dependent on how strong the government is and how strong the character of the citizens is.
So I'm going to come back to the protest bit. Yes, they have held back. Most people feel that it was a big mistake on the part of the Netanyahu government, and they will have to pay the price for it. In fact, one person that I spoke to said that it's understandable that, once right now operations are on. So at the time, and Israelis have all been trained for this, that operations are on, don't destabilize right now. But it is an understood fact that the heads will roll, but later, not right now when operations are on. So there is that holdback factor